In the laptop world, AMD Strix Halo chip, it has been the sleeper hit of 2025. Our video on it, guys, it got over 400,000 views in less than 2 months. But there's been one little problem. It's only been available in this weird gaming tablet from Asus, the Flow Z13. Now, while that is a very good device, we've been chomping at the bit for it to appear in a laptop. Well, ladies and gentlemen, mums and dads, the day has finally arrived. With me is HP's new ZBook Ultra G1a. Who names these products? I can hardly even say them. I mean, really? Anyway, this is the first laptop with AMD Strix Halo processor. Now, if you're wondering why I sound so excited, here's the skitty. This processor delivers insane CPU performance, stronger than AMD's own Ryzen 9 HX chips. In fact, it's around Apple's highest-end M4 Pros. Its GPU is also very strong, trading blows with an RTX 4060 and sometimes even a 4070. And when it comes to power efficiency, it is actually one of the most power-efficient chips we've ever tested. Heck, that is the reason Asus was able to place such a powerful processor inside their tiny 13-inch Flow Z13. But wait, there is more. You can get this processor paired with 128GB of memory, of which 75% can be allocated to the GPU. This allows people like AI developers to run much larger models than what you could traditionally do on a dedicated GPU. Anyway, enough blah 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 from me. Normally I'd say I value your time and tell you straight up if you should buy this laptop or not. Well, this one is just such a bespoke device and a very expensive one. For many people, it will be a colossal waste of money. For others, you're going to love it. What I'm trying to say here is you really need to know the ins and outs to see if it's right for you. So with that said, Agent Sierra is right on the job to walk you through the details, and then I'll be back to talk AI and our overall recommendations.
The ZBook Ultra G1a is not cheap. It starts at $2,600 for 32GB of memory with the worst 1920 by 1200 display and the lower-end Ryzen AI Max 385 APU. That one has 8 CPU cores rather than the 16 cores of ours, and less GPU cores. There are configurations of the ZBook all the way up to $8,300. I can't believe I'm saying that with a straight face. A review unit with 128GB of RAM and 2TB of storage costs $4,100 at the time we made this review. Now, since this is aimed at companies, corporate buyers will likely get discounts. But realistically, you could pretty much buy almost any powerful laptop for the price you're spending on this one. If you are not in the USA, however, we have some good news. Say you are in the UK. The model with 64GB of RAM and a 12-core CPU costs around the same amount as a 14-inch M4 Pro MacBook Pro. Here in the USA, unfortunately, it's a lot more expensive than that MacBook. With that said, since everyone is excited to see this chip in action, we're going to start by reviewing its speakers. Just joking, let's get into performance. Here's Geekbench. This tests a variety of common performance tasks that you may do on your laptop. These can often be hardware optimized by the CPU. The Ultra G1a underperforms compared to the Flow Z13, which has the same Strix Halo CPU, by quite a good amount too. It performs around the same as Intel's Arrow Lake H in multi-core, but lags behind it in single-core. Compared to the most powerful processors that Intel and Apple offer, it's behind Arrow Lake HX and way behind Apple's M4 Pro and Max. In 7-zip, things look a lot better, with the ZBook beating out almost every other laptop we compare it with, including the huge Strix Scar 16 with Intel's brand new Arrow Lake HX processor. The only laptop it didn't beat is once again the Flow Z13. Switching to Cinebench, which tests the processor when maxed out, we can see that the ZBook now significantly underperforms Intel's latest Arrow Lake HX processor, as well as Apple's M4 Max chip. It looks like this processor must have some very good optimizations for 7-zip. Back on Cinebench, the ZBook now more clearly outperforms Intel's Arrow Lake H and AMD's less powerful Ryzen 9 HX 370. Once again, the ZBook underperforms the Flow Z13 with the same CPU. If we double-click in, we can see why. Under a 10-minute torture test, the ZBook was not able to sustain quite the same power draw as the Flow Z13. Per the manufacturer's specs, it is being fed 5 less watts, which just about lines up. What we are showing you on screen is actual max and average power draw measured during the test. These average higher than their specified power draw because of higher allotment for short performance bursts. This is what the laptop can handle based on its constraints, like thermals. Compared to AMD's own Ryzen 9 HX 370 processor, the Halo is more efficient, performing better for less power. That is likely because of its significantly higher cores. Cores tend to become less efficient as you feed them more power. If you can spread that power over multiple, you get increased efficiencies. In fact, the Strix Halo processor is one of the most power-efficient processors other than Apple's M4 Max chip and Intel's newest 275HX. You can see this demonstrated in our scatter plot. Basically, you want to see as much performance as possible for the least amount of power drawn as possible. Taking a look at CPU temperatures during our 10-minute torture test, the ZBook did very well here, keeping its processor very cool. When it comes to heat you'd actually feel during such a high-performance workload, we measured 45 Celsius on the keyboard deck. This is pretty hot, unfortunately. Fan noise is okay. There are far more loud, powerful laptops out there, like the big gaming laptops we are comparing it against. However, there are also quieter, powerful devices, like the Flow Z13 and the MacBooks. In light use, I personally found the fan noise to be annoying. It kept spinning up randomly and then turning off, even when it was doing nothing. I did try running it on its quietest mode, best power efficiency, and it didn't do this. Regardless, it shouldn't exhibit this behavior when it's doing nothing, no matter what mode it's in. On that note, if you are wondering how other modes run, here's a breakdown of their different performance. In balance mode, its performance doesn't drop by much, but you do get about the same fan noise. The main benefit of this mode is that it stays cooler to the touch. In best power efficiency, we see it stay similarly cool with a nice drop in fan noise for only a 17% drop in performance. So, this mode might still be powerful enough for the work you're doing without too much of a trade-off. Switching to GPU performance, in TimeSpy, which is a rasterization gaming benchmark, we see that it performs a little behind an RTX 4070 at max wattage. This is really impressive given this laptop's size. It is way behind an RTX 5080 though. In Wildlife, which is a Vulkan-based benchmark and therefore compatible with macOS, we see that the ZBook slightly trails the MacBook Pro 14 with the 20-core GPU. Again, a very good result. Continuing with gaming, we see another good result from Cyberpunk. It does about as well as a similarly sized TUF A14 with a 4060, and a little worse than the full-powered 4070 in the Predator Helios Neo 14. In Forza Horizon, it still trails our 4070 laptops, but its result isn't bad for casual gaming. Continuing with GPU-intensive tasks, we use the Puget benchmarking suite to test how well these laptops do in both Adobe's Photoshop and video editing softwares like Adobe Premiere Pro and DaVinci Resolve Studio. Starting with Photoshop, we see the ZBook do well here, but not as well as the Flow or the M4 Pro's 20-core GPU. You might think it's weird that the Neo does so well in this test, but it's actually that the other laptops with dedicated graphics underperformed. We sometimes see a laptop's dedicated graphics pull power away from the CPU and make them do poorly in this Photoshop test. Switching over to Premiere, the numbers are a little more consistent. The IdeaPad without dedicated graphics does the worst here, while the new Omen Max 16 with the newest Arrow Lake HX Intel chip and the 5080 does great. These Strix Halo CPUs land right around where the M4 Pro chip does at 6700. Our last test for creatives is DaVinci Resolve Studio, and we see a bit of a lower score from the ZBook here, although not as poor as the IdeaPad, which again doesn't have nearly as powerful of integrated graphics. Overall, if you are a creator, you may enjoy a laptop like this for traveling, but for the price, there are still better options depending on what applications are the most important to you. As this laptop is sold as a mobile workstation, I wouldn't expect to get very good battery life out of it. It can still perform decently well while unplugged, but its performance is throttled down from its full capabilities. It's good to see it beats the Flow significantly here. When it comes to long-running performance tasks on battery, it drained 41% of its battery in a 30-minute period. This means you couldn't do demanding tasks for very long unplugged. You'll notice this is pretty normal among these comparable machines, but in our experience, the MacBook Pro's greater power efficiency lets them last a bit longer during real-world performance use. One bright spot, though, is it does outlast the Flow by quite a bit, and as I showed you, outperforms it when unplugged. Now, if this ends up being your work laptop and you use it to travel at all, we're still seeing quite disappointing results for lighter tasks like streaming a movie over Wi-Fi on battery. For this test, we lower the screen to 200 nits and also set its refresh rate to 48 Hz, since 60 Hz was not an option like we would normally do. It had about half of its battery remaining afterwards, which is pretty mediocre. In this scenario, the Flow outlasted it and the MacBooks destroyed it. When we tested this by charging it back up and then playing a downloaded movie on repeat until the battery dies, we only got around 4 hours, which we of course had to retest as it didn't line up. Then we got 4.5 hours, which is still not great. This laptop is clearly designed to be plugged in at your desk at all times. For a powerful laptop, it is nice to be able to get it in such a small and portable form factor. It's fairly lightweight for its performance, coming in at around the same amount as the MacBook Pro 14. What I thought was interesting is that it weighs less than the Flow, which is a smaller device. Now, if you are comparing to a 14-inch thin-and light, such as one with Intel's Lunar Lake chip, you are going to find this laptop chunky and heavy. But for a powerful laptop, it's still on the lighter side. Its metal chassis has a dull, gray aesthetic, but it does resist fingerprints. Its build is also sturdy, with very minimal screen and deck flex. The edges of the laptop are rounded, so they don't cut into your wrists. This is important, as this laptop is quite thick. The screen can be opened with one hand, and the hinges are stiff enough to utilize the touchscreen without it falling backwards. When it comes to the screen, there are two display options. The cheapest model comes with a 1920 by 1200 resolution IPS panel with around 400 nits of brightness. Feels weird using the term cheapest for a laptop this expensive. The more expensive model that we have comes with a high-resolution 2880 by 1800 OLED panel that has a fast 120Hz refresh rate and supports touch. We measured 100% P3 for its color gamut and 430 nits of brightness. This is pretty good for an OLED. Unfortunately, it does have a bit of a screen door effect where you can see colored pixels peeping through on light-colored content, but this is quite common on OLEDs. What isn't common on OLEDs is that its PWM flickering is super minimal. We only detected it at very low brightness, which is good to see. When it comes to ports, it's all sunshine and rainbows. On the left side, you get an HDMI 2.1 port, a USB Type-C 10 gigabit port, and a Thunderbolt 4 port that also supports charging. You also have a headphone mic combo jack. On the right side, a Kensington lock slot, a USB-A 10 gigabit port, and a second Thunderbolt 4 port that, like the other one, supports charging. It's great that the whole laptop is charged via a 140-watt USB-C charger and doesn't require a proprietary charger like the Flow Z13. Look, on a 14-inch laptop, this is pretty much as good as you're going to get. My only nitpicks are that it would be nice if the third USB-C port offered Thunderbolt and there was an SD card reader. Moving on to the keyboard, it has an extremely satisfying typing feel, which I enjoy. Keys are big and the layout is standard. It is a little loud, which isn't the best in a dead silent meeting room. Multitask responsibly. The keys also have a nice soft texture that isn't too slippery, like some other recent keyboards we've reviewed. The trackpad has a smooth texture that makes tracking feel very natural and accurate. Its click is still mechanical, but we feel it's about the best trackpad you will get outside of a haptic one. But at this price, why didn't we get one? Funnily enough, I hadn't even checked the speakers when we wrote the joke about the speakers, but after listening to mine and Josh's usual test tracks, the speakers are definitely among the best we've heard in a laptop. They get very loud and sound powerful, but the speakers lack bass and clarity. Vocals and instruments sound a little muddy. The ZBook has a 5-megapixel webcam that goes up to 1440p. Take a look.
Here I am on the 1440 webcam, 5 megapixels. Folks, this is about as good a webcam as you're going to get in a laptop. And by the way, there is a privacy shutter right at the top. Speaking of webcam, we tested Linux using Fedora 41, and everything worked except the webcam. Brightness up and down, Wi-Fi speakers, trackpad, etc., that all worked. By the way, we did try the just-released Fedora 42, and unfortunately we couldn't get it to boot. Alright, let's talk AI. We ran a DeepSeek 14BQ4 model and tested it with the standard wolf goat cabbage test. Our NVIDIA RTX 5090 laptop, which folks you can buy for the price of this one, was more than twice as fast. No surprises here. The RTX 5090s have much faster memory, more powerful Blackwell hardware, and of course their software is better optimized, with NVIDIA's industry standard CUDA. The MacBook Pro 16 with the M4 Max chip also smashed the ZBook, but not by as much. Look, this may sound disappointing, but the ZBook may still have cards up its sleeve. It can allocate up to 96 gig of system memory to its GPU, way more than an RTX 5090 laptop can. I'd rather a model run slow than not run at all. Unfortunately, this brings us to our next issue. LM Studio was not able to see the VRAM that we had assigned to the GPU, so we struggled to work out how large a model we could run. When we ran our test that I mentioned to you earlier, we can indeed confirm it did run off the GPU, and at least Windows saw the 64 gig that we had assigned to it. We were also able to load a 32 billion parameter model, but we could not load a 70 billion. Look, clearly, there is work to do for software to catch up to this new hardware, so unfortunately for AI right now, which should be a strong suit of this device, it doesn't seem to be where it needs to be. And this leads us to our conclusion. Firstly, this is a very nice laptop, guys. It really is. It is very premium and it gives you an enormous amount of performance for its size. If your boss buys this for you, you will be delighted. That being said, there is a lot of very strong competition at this price point. The MacBook Pro 14 with a high-level chip like an M4 Pro or Max chip, it is a great alternative. The Mac wins on battery life, creator tasks, and even AI. The Mac's starting price is very competitive, but their upgrades are expensive. If you want to upgrade to 128 gig of memory, it's going to be cheaper to buy the ZBook. And of course, the ZBook, it has other advantages over the Mac, like being able to play the full catalogue of AAA games and running Linux. Now, if you don't want a Mac, another great alternative is to buy a 14-inch gaming laptop with dedicated graphics, something like a Zephyrus G14. You can get an NVIDIA RTX 5080 in that laptop for less than the price of this one. The G14 would massively win in GPU performance, but its CPU performance would be worse. The G14 is also limited with less system memory, and it gets warmer to the touch in most use cases, actually every use case. Another option is to go with a larger Zephyrus G16, which is actually quite light and portable for a 16-inch laptop and doesn't get nearly as hot to the touch. Finally, if you can handle the Flow Z13's tablet form factor, that's a cheaper way of getting a Strix Halo processor, and as we showed you earlier, it performs better in the Flow than the ZBook. I've linked all of these options down below this video, including our recommended specs. Now, on that note, make sure to check out our website, bestlaptop.deals. We recently changed its name. Over there, you'll be able to track prices of laptops across retailers to ensure that you are getting the best deal. We even link you to the retailer currently offering the cheapest price. And folks, there has never been a more important time to track prices than right now. Finally, we're really trying to produce the best possible videos we can. I hope you've seen that in today's video. And we want to produce better videos for you and more of them. Getting subscribed is something free and easy that you can do that will really help us grow. Till next time, go do something awesome with your day, and I will catch you later.